So Kyle DiPetro, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Thanks for making it in today.
Thank you for having me.
So you're a Charlotte native. You know this area pretty well. I'm up in Lake Norman, so
So I've been in. So I grew up in Fort Mill since I was about 10 years old. So 1997, we moved down from Rhode Island, of all places. Kind of very random.
Everyone's from somewhere else here. I've yet to meet a person in Charlotte that actually grew up here, except for Ted Hill from the last conversation.
Yes.
He actually grew up in Mooresville.
That's the thing. I literally went to a comedy show, and the guy that came on stage was like, "Nobody's from here. Everybody I met, nobody's from
somebody
here."
else. It must be pretty great.
It's a melting pot. I think it's a city that you live, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a city that you visit. It's a city that you come to live. You know, it's got a lot of great things going for it. So
yeah, it's funny. We were talking about the whole strategy behind this talk, and we're going to have this talk, and Strata is going to end up doing this big event on October 23rd. And the idea is to have smart people in here that are like the top in the industry at home building, land development, operations. And you know, when I thought about people that I really wanted to have in here, I kind of see you as you're totally visible because you do a lot on LinkedIn. I kind of saw you as a rising star. Then I realized he's already risen past me.
I don't know about that.
How do I get him in here and to talk about the thing you do really well? So kind of to start off, thinking about kind of the pathway that people take in business, that you know, you start off, end up doing one thing, and you end up doing pivots along the way. You run DP development, and I guess my question for you is what you do right now what you always intended to do, or is it really a function of little pivots you made along the way?
Man, I love that question. Pivots along the way. So I can't remember the exact quote, but my father gave me a framed photo or a framed picture of a quote. And it basically says that most men are successful because they develop the opportunity at hand. So they didn't come up with some new grandiose idea. They didn't have a plan. It's not like I was 10 years old and was like, man, I can't wait to be a developer someday. You know, it's like, I tell most people that actually there's very few people that know they want to be a developer.
I don't think people even know what being a developer is all about.
I don't think they do. So most of the time I'll say, people say, well, what do you do? And I say, you know, there's maybe 5 years worth of work that has to go in before you see that big piece of equipment on site knocking stuff down.
Sure.
I said, that's what we do. And they're like, oh yeah, never thought about that. Never thought about, you know, I flush my toilet. You know, it
just goes down,
right? So,
and then there's a ton of work that goes into actually making that a buildable place to live, right?
100%. Right? There's all sorts of battles on the front end. There's different things that you have to go through. There's all the permits and approvals and blah, blah, blah. And I'm fortunate to love what I do. I definitely fell into it, but I absolutely love what I do. I love this business.
So where did it start for you? What was Kyle's first entree into the real estate realm?
So I was a career project manager in the banks. I loved project management. I loved the idea of getting stuff done. I started networking quite a bit. I met someone.
You said you were a project manager for a bank?
For the banks, yeah. I did. I was at Bank of America and Wells Fargo. So I did kind of my tour of duty in Charlotte.
And what kind of project do you manage there?
It was all risk management and technology. So
it wasn't even real estate.
Nothing to do with real estate.
Oh, really? That's
Absolutely
interesting.
nothing to do with real estate. No, it was purely that I knew how to be able to take something from A and get it to Z and communicate well with stakeholders. It's okay, I got that part down. That's maybe 50% of what you got to be able to do to be a good project manager, which parlayed itself into being a development manager.
Okay.
But really nothing to do with real estate in any facet. My father was in real estate. He built houses and stuff. So I had maybe a little bit of exposure, but that's it.
So you went from that. So what was your first foray into actual real estate? Was it as a project manager for?
It was for construction, actually.
Okay, so you weren't entitling at that point. You weren't doing anything in terms of actual zoning, development, entitlement. You were actually managing projects.
Oddly enough, within about 6 months of the first company that I worked for, when I was doing construction project management and we were doing stuff that was nothing to do with residential really, we had one project and the company I was working for said, hey, we're also going to start a development shop. And our first deal is a 50-lot single-family subdivision. It's just outside of Charlotte. It's 0 lot line and we're going to do age targeted.
Okay.
Go. And I was like, okay, all right. So let's attach ourselves at the hip of the planning director for the town that we were working in and try to really understand. I asked a million questions. I was very present in all the meetings. I went to city council. I mean, I knew nothing. I mean, I still to this day look back and I laugh and I said, I showed up to the neighborhood meeting and just thought we were just going to chat it up with neighbors. And, you know, they're asking me all these questions and stuff. And I didn't walk into it. It's funny. I had less anxiety then than I do now.
Because you know what it is now.
Because now I'm like, all right, 50 people hate me. They don't even know me. They don't like me. That's probably the most unnatural thing about this business.
Is that really the case where like if people think about developers in like whether you're in a pro development area or a non-pro development area, is it always a hostile environment for you to go into when you're trying to convince a municipality to let you build what you want to build? Or is it sometimes they want you to come in, they welcome you with open arms?
I have had smooth processes. I don't want to sit here and paint a picture that every time it's been this ugly, horrible thing.
It's all right. You can make it seem like the warrior. That's not a bad way to paint yourself.
80% of the time, it's man in the arena for sure. You are going in and you are going into a battle. There's pitchforks, there's torches, there's everybody wants a piece of flesh. And I tell my staff and my team and anybody who will listen, I said, think about developers. How many times have you seen a movie where the developer was the bad guy? A TV show
almost
where
always.
the developer was the bad guy.
Almost always.
And so naturally, that's not who I am naturally. I don't like relish fighting with people. I don't relish battling with people. So there are some people that are like, hey, let's go. I want to go have this out. That's not me. I want people to like me at the end of the day. I don't. And if my natural state is that, this is the antithesis of that because people don't like me without having ever spent time talking to me.
Sure.
So that is hard. That's something that I've had to really grow and be challenged in. And it's helped me, but I still have that same feeling of like, man, I got to walk in here and I don't know what I'm going to face. And I have walked in with 30, 40, 50, 60 people that are angry and mad. And no matter what I say, they're upset before I've even started talking.
Why do you think that is? Is it because they don't want things to change? Is it because they see an outsider coming in trying to do something new? Is there like something about human beings that like naturally veer away from things changing, and therefore any kind of development conversation is going to be at least in part fraught with, I want things to stay the same as they have been. Even though in the long run, that's probably not the best thing for any municipality. It's going to impede growth at the end of the day. So you got to be the messenger that comes in and says, I'm not the bad guy. I'm looking to build something that's good for you, that's good for the place we're looking to build it. And here's all the reasons why, knowing you might get a good response, you might get that pushback.
I do think human psychology is the biggest part of this whole business to me. Like to me, at the end of the day, I think it's a people business, right? It's not really about real estate. It's at the end of the day, I'm trying to get something done so I can build houses so people have a place to live, and that's great. But the reality of a lot of what we do, especially on the upfront entitlement side, it's the people business. So psychology is absolutely critical. And when you walk in there, number one, people don't like change. If they've been living across from a 40-acre site and their kids play over there in that creek and they throw the football over there or this, that, and the other thing, or they hunt on that land or whatever, they don't want to see it change. And they definitely don't want to see it change for other houses that they don't think are comparable to theirs.
Sure.
And I've had people complain that we're going to have their house prices go up because their taxes are going to go up. And I've had people complain that their house prices are going to go down because we're building a lesser inferior product.
That makes sense.
So it's like, it's the change. And then what happens too is that weird dichotomy of you got a municipality that says they're pro-growth, they have a future land use plan. And I'm saying, well, hey, you guys are marketing and branding yourselves and opening yourselves up for business and telling us you want to grow. So that's why we're coming to you.
Sure.
If you said we're closed for business, I just won't go there. It makes my life easier because I can just mark that place off the list. But when you say you're open for business and the people in the community aren't, it's really difficult because I'm saying, hey, you told us to come here, right?
You're saying one thing and maybe it's a function of them not understanding what their populace wants. Maybe it's a function of them not being able to convince their populace that this is the better thing to do. You're right?
Probably.
So DP development, explain exactly what you guys do, because there's firms that do everything from entitlement to construction to operations and capital raising. You seem to be strictly on the land side of things, which to me is kind of the hardest part because it requires finding the opportunity, figuring out whether or not a certain asset type fits, and then making a market of potential developers and capital that might want to go into that. So you want to give me an overview of exactly what part of the ecosystem DP plays in?
Yeah, the majority of our business is based in the land side of the business. So that is finding a property, doing all the entitlements, getting all the permits, taking all the hair off of it to make it easier for a regional or a national home builder or a land developer who wants to go put it on the ground. We'll go put lots on the ground as well. We have a construction background. We're perfectly qualified to do construction. We do some construction management projects where we take projects from due diligence all the way through delivery. So I'm engaged with the GC. We were engaged on the site work. We were engaged on actually working with the property managers and doing final walkthroughs for acceptance of units. And that's kind of more consistent with my background. But what we really saw was the value proposition and the value curve of, man, when you take a raw piece of land and you get it entitled, that feels like more value creation than at any other point. And we're not home builders, right?
Yep.
We don't have the 60-year infrastructure of a D.R. Horton or one of these national home builders. Like, I don't ever want to compete with them because they're too good at that, right?
Yep.
They need to be focused on building houses. So I said, okay, well, where's our value? We can be the ones that go in and try to simplify the complex and say, okay, let's look at land, which is the thing that most builders struggle with the most. Even ones that have been around for 50 years and know we got to have land, they still struggle.
Well, there was a time after, I think, the last downturn where most builders decide we're not going to hold land on our books because it's too much risk. It's bad for a stock price. We're going to basically offload all this risk onto guys like you. Kind of good for you because you get all of this new opportunity to take this insane amount of risk that land investors take, but it also comes with a huge amount of upside, right? So was that did you come to the business after the big national builders kind of made that decision to not hold land on their books, so that you kind of came into it knowing there was this big opportunity to take that risk and make that money?
Definitely. I mean, I fell into it. So I was doing what I was doing before. I was doing construction projects and I was doing development projects, and we were building projects soup to nuts. So we were building out, single family for sale, townhomes for sale. We did lot development. We did a retail deal. We did multifamily, senior living. So I got to see all of it, and we built it. A lot of times we'd own it, operate it. I was signing HUD statements when we were selling individual units. So I got to see everything. And I met someone that was, he really is a mentor to me now to this day. We've done a lot of business together. Tim Samuels.
So Tim and I at BRD.
Yes. So Tim and I are super close. He's like an uncle to me.
Yeah, you're actually on their website as someone that.
So we've done a ton of business with them. So and Tim, I credit him with really opening my eyes to the reality of what was so valuable about land, because that was his vision. That was his baby. He was in home building for his entire career basically, and said, man, the home building part, once you get to vertical, you can kind of put your arms around that and put that in a widget
box. Almost. Yeah,
they know what they're doing there.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think for that, he really showed me the value of what that was. And so we just kind of said, we're going to focus more and more and more on that. And that's what we've done for the last 5 years. Now, of course, long term, we still have, big aspirations to go and do mixed use and multifamily sites, things that we own long term and have an ability to do some differentiated stuff.
Yep.
But it's all still going to function around residential. I still believe in home building. I still believe in any type of residential, whether it's build for rent, whether it's single family rentals, anything like that. I still believe that that's kind of the core of the business that we will focus on, and I just see us expanding over time to do larger projects.
So let's talk about build for rent, because it's a huge trend. It's still kind of a newish thing, but now it's a little bit more well known. It has some time behind it, so more institutional capital's piling in. I know when we get land deals, developers are a bit agnostic about whether or not they're sold to a build for rent company or a national builder. So from your perspective, is there kind of a way that you look at, when you find any land deal, do you look at it the same way, and then you eventually come to a fork in the road where you're like, all right, this has to go this will make a better build for rent, or this will make a better for sale community? And I guess, one of the things I'm always challenged with is there's so much more kind of research to be done down the build for rent path, because now you're not only talking about home buyers, you're talking about understanding what the rents are like in the area, what the operation of that community will be. Kind of how do you go about looking at new land deals and figuring out this is a good build for rent project or a better for sale project?
Yeah,
or does it matter to you because all you're doing is basically buying the land and entitling it, and then it'll eventually go down one of those two paths?
Yes, I would say it matters to me, but mostly because you just want to be able to have as many customers as possible, right? So if I know it's open for the build for rent groups and the for sale groups, I've now got 100 customers versus maybe 30.
Big audience.
So it's one of those where I just want to have it. I have more places to get off, more different people. Now, we don't usually run a process and actually take it out to the masses. Sometimes we'll just take it out to a few different groups. It only kind of depends on that deal.
We're similar in that way, yeah. My ethos is always find a good project and make yourself more useful to your network of buyers by knowing what they want to buy and delivering it without a whole lot of competition amongst others, right? There has to be some competition.
Right.
And I guess, I don't know if you look at it in a different way, but when you bring out your deals, do you bring it to one investor and let them have a chance at it? Or do you know, like, I can't just give it to one buyer. I have to put at least two in competition with each other. And that's much better than putting it on the open market where there's going to be hundreds of people looking at it.
Definitely.
Because then you invite all the lookers, right? All the people that might put it under contract and not be able to execute.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think you know how to do it where it's probably 3 to 5 is where I feel comfortable. And it ends up being, take it to the people that have either proven that they have success, they have a project nearby. I trust them. I've done a deal with them before. But to your point, I don't want to be like, oh, he's only going to he's only going to sell to these people. Don't even bother looking at that deal. You don't want that reputation, or you'll never sell anything when that one group doesn't want to buy that deal. So we're very cautious of that. When it comes to your original question about BTR, most of the deals that we've looked at have been further out, and so they tend to be a little bit more difficult to pencil for BTR. So we look at that and we say, okay, at the end of the day, this is going to be a for sale play. We love the BTR sites, and we look at a lot of them. We've done a lot of them in Charlotte where we've tried to find more core quality sites because it all depends on rents. And so we have kind of a back of napkin way of looking at it. It is easier to pencil back of napkin on for sale because, okay, if I know I can only sell a house for $400,000, boom, 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 we run a calculus. This is what the paper lot value is, or this is what a developed lot value is, and I know I can get there. You know, there's a little bit more of a story and nuance that you have to figure out with rentals because there's so much other stuff. There's the job growth. You know, schools matter for sale, but they matter more for rent.
For renters,
you know, and even figuring out what is someone going to pay for a fenced-in backyard? What is someone going to pay for a one-car garage? What is somebody going to pay for a two-car garage? What's somebody going to pay for a surface park? And there's less comps with for sale. There's so many comps. You know, with build for rent, you're still kind of speculating because you're comparing yourself to multifamily. But you're not necessarily offering the same thing. And so you think you're getting a premium for that, but you don't always know exactly what that is. And like, we're in that phase right now. We have a project that's in lease up with a client of ours, and we're working through it. And we're pulling the lever forwards and backwards. Hey, the 2 bedrooms have been more well received than the 3 bedrooms. How much more can we get for this? How much more can we get for this additional parking space? They're closer to the amenities. So what is that going to be worth? So you're looking down to individual units and what you can push rent out for instead of just saying, all right, it's $2,500 a month and that's just what we're going to rent it for. So I think the nuance is a little bit tighter and you have to be into that story. I think you guys do a fantastic job of like looking at the comps and being able to tell that story so that that answer is already taken care of day one.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times someone brings me a project and they're like, this is a great build for rent, and they pitch me on it because they want to have me spend my time and energy as a broker. And I spend, you know, a few days actually looking at comps, looking at, you know, how densely populated the area is, how well things are renting. And I'm like, this ain't built for rent. How'd you come to that conclusion with it? And then I realized they were just like, oh, I thought it would be.
It just seems like it. Yeah.
It seems like it. It's like, it's not. And here's like the 10 reasons why. And you got to tell them their baby is a little bit uglier than, you know, than they thought. But a lot of times that stuff makes good for sale projects. You know, it's funny. I was looking at DP Development's website the other day. You have like 20 different projects you guys have listed on your site as being done. That's a huge amount. It's like $360 million of volume. Like, that's like, it's crazy. How, I guess out of all of that, number one, congratulations on the amount of deals you're able to get done in such a short period of time. Any one of those projects stand out as kind of being the more interesting than the others? Any special child out of all of the kids in the classroom?
Yeah, you know, our Chestnut Lane project was actually one of our smallest. It's 57, but I call it small but mighty because it probably was the greatest return and allowed for us to really turn a corner in our business and how we look at things and do things. And that was the first one that I put under contract with just one other partner. It took a long time. There were some battles. There were some different things that were some challenges, but it was really a fantastic outcome for us. And if you pick the one that was like, what was your best deal? It's probably not the one that you would think. And so buried in the details.
Very often is. Yeah. So, so take me through that, because a lot of people that I speak to, you know, they're brokers, or there's some other facet of the real estate business, and they're like, I really want to get into land development, or I really want to get into construction, and they're just trying to figure out their way. So like with that project you just mentioned, like what was the path from, you know, the minute you heard about it through actually getting under contract to closing it and figuring out how to actually dispose of it?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. You look at it immediately, and you're trying to figure out location.
Was it brought to you by a broker?
It was brought to me by a friend who lives in the area, owns a bunch of land. I've done several other deals with him.
So in your network, someone that you knew that you were doing this thing, and they brought you the deal,
and
right?
He had a familial relationship. He knew somebody in their family, had grown up with them. He said, I think they might be trying to sell. There's some other people that have sniffed around it but couldn't figure it out. And where we've really made our hay is strictly on doing complicated deals that nobody else really wants to do or feels confident that they can figure out.
Doesn't sound like too much fun.
It is not always like we don't get the perfect square at Main and Main, with the right price. We don't mess.
Do you
with
find
a
the
lot
bigger
of that
guys usually get that the more embedded firms, or when you first started out?
Yeah, absolutely.
We find the same thing where our bread and butter has been smaller projects that are like the 40 to 80 versus like going after the 120 to 220, because larger firms that are multifaceted, that are vertically integrated, generally vie for that. I'm like kind of like that movie War Dogs, when Jonah Hill says that no one's paying attention to the crumbs, and there's a ton of crumbs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I felt, and so I even read I read The Builder, which was about John Crosland, and it's about the whole trajectory of what they did. And I look at him, and he started building single family houses, and then he built his first neighborhood, and then he built a bigger neighborhood, and then he built bigger neighborhoods, and then his son takes over, and before you know it, they're doing mixed use and multifamily and retail and all this stuff. Well, no one at the beginning of the story would have ever said that that's what the trajectory was.
It's too high of a mountain to even think about.
So for us, it's like we're just building credibility as much as we can. If I say that I've done 20,000 lots in my career, people are going to take us seriously. If we say that we've done $1 billion worth of transactions, people are going to take us seriously. So it's kind of just leveraging on top of things that we've done and saying, okay, we just have to be nimble. We just have to do a bigger deal. We just have to continue to complete things. So when I look at Chestnut, it's kind of the one that started it all. It'll probably be laughably small at some point in my career, but at the same time, it's like, it was a fantastic return. We went through a lot of bumps and bruises on it. I learned a tremendous amount doing the deal, and we were successful at the end of the day, that gave me a lot of confidence to say, it's one thing when we have our consulting and we do a lot of those deals and everything that goes there, but when we've put real money into the deal ourselves and you've now got it at risk and you're like, oh gosh, this is what it really feels like. Because I've been in the business for a while, but I didn't have my own money in a lot of those deals, when I was working for another employer. And that kind of turned for me and really gave me the confidence to say, oh, okay, you can do this. You know how to do it. And that knowledge that you've built up isn't just knowledge that's fake when it comes to the investing. It's it's real knowledge. Now you just are putting your own money at risk, which just gets you even more emotionally tied to the deal, because you're like, oh, shoot, I worked hard for that money and now I want to see it grow.
Did you consider that to be a huge turning point where you went from strictly using other people's money to actually investing some of your own money in a deal? Was that's a scary moment for any business. You go from being an employee or maybe an independent contractor where you're strictly doing it with other people's money, and all of a sudden now you're in a position to actually spend your own money, take a little more risk, make a much larger payday. What was that like for you?
I think it made me feel like I was in the game.
Like you arrived almost?
Yeah, I was in the game.
You really were part of it?
For sure. Yeah. I definitely felt like, regardless of the outcome, I felt like, okay, this is what it really means to be a developer. This is what the next
evolution should be.
This is what the next evolution should be. So for me, it was seeing it, understanding it. I knew that our business had money in deals before, and I'd seen people write checks, and I think I do a pretty good job of being very emotionally invested into our projects, whether they're me invested into or our business invested into it versus our clients. But at the end of the day, there's nothing greater than losing sleep at night over knowing that your money is truly on the line, and you worked hard for that money, and now you're trying to get that money to grow. So yes, I would say it was a little bit of a sense of arrival, not in terms of now I'm successful, but in terms of, okay, I can do it. And I think the confidence is everything, right? Like I tell anybody, there's two things that I think you have to be successful as an entrepreneur, both in this business and any business. You just have to have some level of vision and some level of confidence. And as those two things grow, you will have some level of success. I can't guarantee you what that's going to be, but if you have those first two things, I've seen people who are brilliant get stuck. And I've seen people who I would not consider brilliant do incredible things because they had vision and confidence. And at the end of the day, for me, that was kind of sometimes you got to check the box and show yourself that you're even capable of something. So that was that for me.
Well, it's funny. We're going to be doing these TED Talks at the Strata event, and I was thinking about doing it myself, kicking it off. And I was thinking about the three core principles that make any entrepreneur, especially in the building or development space. The first is vision. You got to have vision. The second is optimism, because optimism is the thing that pushes you through. Otherwise, vision is just left on paper, right? And then the last one is confidence and execution. It actually wasn't. It was vision, optimism, and the execution part of it. I just wrote the speech the other day. It'll come back to me after I'm done. But you got to have kind of like the overall vision, optimism about what can be done and the fact you can do it, and then like to know how to actually push it through and get it done. And part of what I felt like the biggest thing that pushed me to want to create an event around developers and builders and operators here in Charlotte is, you have conversations every day on the phone. You hear about people doing really big things, but something about being in the same room as somebody, seeing them in the flesh, hearing their stories, and maybe you talk to the visionary and you're the optimist. Maybe you talk to the person that does the execution, and you're the guy with the vision. And when people come together like that, especially in a time when, everyone's very much siloed in their own office, and a lot of times you don't have that, interaction with people. That's kind of where this whole thing that I thought about, creating this event with this educational component, doing things like this with you, really came into sharper focus. Because it's like, just sitting here with you, hearing your story, it's like it's real, you went from being an employee from a large organization to doing deals with, essentially no capital involved to, being a principal in your deals. And, God knows where you'll be in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. You might look back on what you're doing right now and think, man, I can't believe it took me so long to actually evolve to this next state, And that one thing is the most exciting thing to me about getting people to come to an event to do things like this. Curious though, if you're talking to someone that's kind of at your starting point, before the evolution that you made, what kind of advice would you give someone that wants to kind of follow your path? Would you, is there a specific set of principles that you kind of live by over these years and that you tell someone else to follow?
Simple, not easy. That is, I live by that. You'll see me post that on LinkedIn all the time. I'm big on that. And what that really means is that, this business and life in general can be complicated, and every opportunity that you get, every person that I've seen be successful that is, let's say they're, my senior by 10, 20, 30 years, I realize they didn't do anything overly complicated. They didn't try to reinvent the wheel. They just did the simple things well, consistently over time. It's a little bit boring sometimes. It's not always easy. There's up times, there's down times. It's simple, not easy. And at the end of the day, if you can get your head around that, because I do think everybody's looking for a secret, right? And as I got, I'll be 38 next month. As I got a little bit older and a little bit wiser, just a little bit wiser, I realized that at the end of the day, there is no secret. There's no easy path. There's no like, oh my gosh, these guys know something that I don't know. They might know something that you don't know, but you're going to find out at the end of the day that it wasn't something so awe-inspiring that you could have never come to that conclusion yourself. It's getting out there, doing it consistently over time. It is that simple. It's just not easy. It's hard. It's you get kicked in the mouth a couple of times, and it's going to be difficult, and you're going to get knocked back, and you have to be able to persevere and keep going and keep going. And there's times where when I say boring, I don't mean boring as in I don't have enough to do. I mean boring as in like, you're going to get distracted. This is going to get put in front of you. Well, maybe we should do these types of deals. What about this? What if we did that? Oh my gosh, we could get our hands in this. And the reality is stick to what you know for a long time. And then maybe you'll be fortunate enough to branch out. But you got to stick to what you know for a long time and do that. Go every time you think you should do something else, go deeper. Every time you think, what if we did that? Go deeper. So I just tell people, don't be an inch deep and a mile wide. Go deeper every single time. So those are the only two things: simple, not easy, and make sure that you go as deep as you possibly can into what you're doing. I'm reading a book right now called So Good They Can't Ignore You. And the whole premise is that you get so good at something. It's not about whether or not it's your passion or whether you just absolutely love it. You just get so good at something that you learn to love it. And you learn to be so good that they can't ignore you, because if you're that good, you're going to get paid an outsized amount of value. You're going to bring an outsized amount of value, and that's going to return to you. So I'm a very simple person when it comes to that, because I used to think that there was something out there that I didn't know, and there's not.
It's amazing because there's so many different. You have so much information at your disposal nowadays, and I have 4 boys, and they're very much into video games and in the online world, and I'm always pulling them away from that, saying you got to get out of this online world into the real world, even if it's only you going out and knocking on the neighbor's door and offering to walk their dog or do their lawn or joining a sport or doing something that's real. Because you can get caught up in, especially now kids, you can get caught up in the online world that, you're right, the very act of doing has its own merit. It's its own thing. And even if the thing that you do is wrong, or you feel like it can't possibly be right, even if you get it wrong, even if it's not the exact right thing or the smartest thing to do, there's something that, when I look back on my career, I thought, geez, that didn't work. That had no chance of working, but I got a lot out of it because it kind of proved that I can do something, affect people, and get an outcome. And that kind of gave me the confidence to do something else. And I didn't love selling SFR portfolios when I first started doing this business, but it was what was around. And what I realized was, well, you could get to talk to a lot of interesting people that have a lot of interesting backgrounds, come in contact with a lot of money, a lot of people that have access to money. And then when we started doing Built for Rent, it's like, oh, these builders that we're talking to, they're a whole nother realm. And then it opens up a whole nother, world of possibilities that you don't get unless you actually just decide to act.
Right.
And that's what I think a lot of kids even coming out of college don't realize, that there's really no bad career path. It's the one that you decide to spend your time and energy on, right?
And once you do it, you just got, like you just said,
you
learned to fall in love with it. You didn't wake up one day and say, I'm so passionate about SFR, but you've learned to become passionate about it, because the more you knew about it, the more you grew, the more you realize that, this is a benefit to the people that are living there. It's a benefit to the people who are investing in these deals. It's a benefit to the people that are owning them. It's a benefit to the cities and the taxes that are being created. Yep. It's an alternative for people that can't afford right now, but need a little bit of a bigger space and things for children and whatnot. So for me, it's I just really, I think people get caught up in that, and they want to be passionate about something. And I'm all for that if you can find it.
If you can find it.
You got to find your purpose.
You can't find the thing you're passionate about. Right. Find anything.
Find your purpose, and that's more important to me. Like your purpose is to be useful in our society in some capacity, and whatever that ends up being, just go deeper into that. I mean, it's cliche, but I think Bruce Lee, I can't remember exactly what the quote was, but he says, I don't fear the man who's practiced 1,000 kicks, but I fear the man who's practiced one kick 1,000 times. And it just shows you.
That's a great quote.
It just shows you.
I don't know if that's the right quote, but that's
it's something in that realm. I'm pretty close. Yeah. And at the end of the day, when I read it the first time, I probably didn't think anything of it, but I've read it several times since then. And what it taught me was just what we were talking about before, your ability to go deeper and to say, okay, now you're in SFR. I want to know everything that you can humanly know about SFR. I want to know every person. I want to know every deal. I want to know how you underwrite. I want to get better and better and better. And that now is your purpose, and that's your driving force. It's the same way with me. We have a mission statement that we want to change the way development is perceived and done. It's that big and important for us to make it so that people don't hate us when we walk into a room. And will we accomplish it? I don't know, but that's the bigness of the mission for us, is that we want to do something that matters, and it attaches us to more than just, hey, I want to go out and be super financially successful. Of course I do. Absolutely. I want to have freedom, and I want to be able to do different things and do all the fun things that are out there in this world, and with experiences. But that I found to be my purpose. That's why I started talking about stuff on LinkedIn, because I said, you know what? I want to be able to get this out. However it disseminates ultimately into the people that really need to see it. Of course, at some point I would love to sit on some type of a panel or some type of a group in the state and say, hey, how do we try to make some influence and make some changes? There was just a bill that got changed about how right-of-way acquisition was done, and I won't bore everybody with the details, but the people that were involved in it, one gentleman in particular has been in the home building industry in this city, I think, for 50 years.
Okay.
And I bet you he's as proud of that accomplishment as he is of anything that he's built, businesses he's sold, land he's sold, anything. I bet he's as proud of being able to influence a major thing that was affecting a lot of developers. Yeah. And I just had this situation come up the other night where I was at a city council hearing, and I had a little bit of a spat with the mayor, and I normally don't do that. I'm very reserved and respectful.
Doesn't really serve your purpose to have a spat with the mayor. But,
right, it doesn't.
Sometimes can't be avoided.
We did win, but what I actually felt like in that moment was I wasn't just speaking for us and our project. I felt like I was speaking for developers, because I basically was saying, I'm tired of you guys playing games when it comes to this stuff. You say you're pro growth, you say you're pro business, you say you want to see affordable housing, and yet you're jamming all these requirements on us. You're asking us for more and more and more and more and more. Right. And then on top of all that, you ask us to put in less lots. And it's like, you're not participating here. You're not getting into the math, you know? Yep. So it's stuff like that that really gets me fired up.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like when you think about, apart from the financial aspect, which everyone wants to be successful in, what really matters over the course of time you spend in any business. And like the only real currency I feel like is the influence you peddle, right? Like the influence you're able to exert on other people. Like as you get older and more experienced in the business, you know, that way people trust you, that way people end up taking what you have to say more seriously, based upon the things, in no small part, that you do. You know, you have to act and do these different things. I mean, you have all these stories about going into land development and sitting in these meetings and peddling your influence to get something done. You know, I'm doing it a little bit different way. Like, you know, we talked about when I'm trying to sell real estate, calling people one-on-one to pitch a deal doesn't seem as good as giving people a platform to go to and interact with other people. And that's how I'm basically generating influence for myself, by almost borrowing your expertise and borrowing your, you know, your ability to make people think a certain way. You know, the older you get, the more you realize that's the real currency. It's actually being able to influence people and have people actually listen to you at the end of the day. You know?
I agree with that. I mean, I think that's part of the reason that you see more content in our industry now than you would have seen even 5 and 10 years ago. I think at the end of the day, a lot of guys that I see that are uber successful in this business that I really respect, man, super old school, and it shows that you can get stuff done that way. But given how things are shifting and how things are changing, I mean, think about it. You've seen residential real estate shows, $1 Million Listing, things like that. And these guys get these huge influential, fan bases.
And they might not be the best at
else.
what they do. They're just really visible.
It's really visible. And then they get business from that. So we started really thinking, we were like, look, I'm not saying that we're going to get to that level. What I'm saying is, why aren't we talking about this business? Why aren't we putting content out there? Why aren't we filming what it really looks like? And it might bore the heck out of some people.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I love this business. And even though there's parts of it that are really tough and really challenging, I think that there's some people that would find it exciting, because one thing that I get asked all the time, how did you get in development? I want to be a developer. I want to be a developer. I want to show people what it looks like.
I think a reality show with DP Developments should be the next. We got to find a producer for it. And always, we were talking about it the other day. It's like you have all these residential shows like Flip This House or $1 Million Listing. No one's actually created a reality TV show about development with all the natural drama that goes into actually developing real estate. I'm surprised no one's did it before.
Yep.
You know,
it's right there.
It's right there. You just got to grab it.
Exactly.
Someone's going to do it, Kyle.
That's what I'm like. I've never seen it. Why is there not a Netflix show? I'm like, it would be interesting, because so many people say they want to be in development.
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
It just comes up all the time.
It's such a black box to a lot of people, because they don't understand what really goes into it, from like the long nights and like the risk you got to take, and like the outsized portion of time you have to spend meeting and networking with other people to figure out where the opportunities are and whether or not those are the opportunities you should be capitalizing on, and then raising the capital to actually do it. I mean, there's so much to it, much more so than like, buying $1 million house in Manhattan at the end of the day.
At the end of the day, it's not. It's a lot more complicated, and developer has to be able to really be pretty good at a lot of things, and that's their expertise. Their expertise is to be versatile enough to understand the model and understand the finance, understand the capital raising, understand the construction, understand the design, understand the entitlements and permitting, the fees, all the things that go into it, understand the political aspect and the bureaucracy and how difficult it can be in certain municipalities to get things done. Being able to play those political games, for lack of a better term, at the end of the day, is you got to be able to kind of figure all those things out. So it works well with my skill set. I think I'm organized at the end of the day, and I really like to be able to do all the things that go into development. There's certain aspects of it, like anything, that you like more than others. But I could be in muddy boots walking a job site, with our construction team one day, and the next day I'm in a white collar meeting, talking about the lending for a certain deal. And it's like, man, you got to have some versatility in this business.
Yeah. So in your mind's eye, you look out 5 years, 10 years, beyond that, like if you could wave a wand and pick the Kyle that is going to be that guy in the next 10 or 15 or 20 years, what does it look like?
Yeah, I would say that we want to continue to develop and build assets that we can hold on to long term.
Yep.
We want to continue to add value in the Carolinas, where we're building places for people to live. And I think that matters at the end of the day. If you really think about it,
I agree.
Properties that you've sold, properties that I've built and sold, developed, whatever it was, humans live in those places. People had their first child there. They got married there. They brought mom home to live with them there. And I think if you stop for a second and think about that, that's what really matters about what we're doing. And so for me, being able to own those assets long term, to be able to grow that, and to be able to challenge myself, because there are projects that I see where I drive by and, I think anybody in real estate drives by and like, okay, what did they do there? How did they do that? Who was involved? What piece am I missing that I couldn't do that now, but I could be able to do it in 5 or 10 years? So seeing some of the bigger mixed use sites and things like that those really get me excited. And I want to contribute to the Carolinas at large, but I want to contribute to Charlotte in a meaningful way. So housing, and then certainly some level of retail and commercial where people actually use the spaces that we help to create. That to me is what's exciting, because there's twofold. There's the people that use it, and there's also the job creation that goes along with it, because we all know a framer or an electrician or an architect or somebody who's touching that project in some way. And so for me, that's a big part of our mission, is the creation of jobs and economics that come through that kind of get parlayed through all these different people that participate in some fashion. So that's what's critical to me, I think.
Yeah, I think it goes into the thing I think most guys especially have, where like they want to see something built. They want to see something that's going to extend beyond their life, that's going to actually affect people beyond what they're doing right now. No matter what you do. And I look at that in terms of like, my 4 boys, and trying to build something at Strata that's going to be able to be augmented by them and their interests later on. And it's not just going to die with me, right? I guess real estate's the ultimate that, because, you're building something that's going to outlast you at the end of the day. And there's 2 things. There's the actual real estate, and then there's the influence that you created in order to create the real estate. That's what I really think that's special about real estate. It's not only the physical structures, it's the relationships that I'll form over my career that I'm hoping one day my kids will be able to step into, and they'll know the kids of the people I formed these relationships with.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. That's the dream right there.
It's the dream, man.
Yeah.
Well, Kyle, I appreciate you doing this, man.
Adam, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been
awesome.
fun. Yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.